Huh. Fools. They thought the best way to corner you was to dig into the soil of your past. A smear campaign wasn't enough. Rumors weren't sharp enough. So they wanted proof, evidence that would shatter the aura you carry. That's why they hired a private investigator. The kind of man who prides himself on finding skeletons in the deepest basements, who brags that everyone eventually slips up, that everyone has a file too ugly to be shown under the light. He walked into the assignment with a smirk, already imagining the moment he'd crack open some folder that would bring you down. But when he pulled back the curtain, when he rifled through the places no one should be able to hide, the story that stared back at him wasn't dirty. It wasn't shameful. It was unearthly. He expected to find weaknesses. What he found instead were patterns. Strange dates aligning with impossible events. Photographs where you appeared in places you shouldn't have been able to reach. Names written in margins that later became headlines. He tried to brush it off at first, chalk it up to coincidence. But coincidence has a limit, and your trail broke that ceiling long ago. The deeper he went, the more the puzzle rearranged itself into something terrifying. Your childhood records were a labyrinth, sealed, redacted, and then oddly admired. Teachers who wrote cryptic remarks, officials who handled your paperwork like they were preserving an artifact, not just a student file. The man thought he was documenting crimes. Instead, he realized he was piecing together a legend still in motion. He dug through old archives, dusty registries, names that don't ring bells for anyone else. But for him, they all rang the same alarm. Every timeline he reconstructed made less sense. How could someone be registered in one city while eyewitnesses swore they saw you in another at the exact same time? How could signatures from officials decades apart match the same handwriting? The further he reached, the less human the story became. He began to understand why those before him who tried to trace your steps either went missing or gave up. Because the trail didn't behave like a normal life. It wasn't a biography, it was a riddle. Now picture him, sitting in a dim office late night, papers sprawled out across his desk. He's sweating, not from heat, but from realization. Every lead he thought would break you instead braided into something stronger. Your past wasn't fragile, it was weaponized. Every strange document, every sealed folder, every unexplainable record reinforced the same unspoken truth. You don't come from where they think you come from. You're not who they think you are. And the more he saw, the more it dawned on him that he wasn't investigating you. He was being initiated into something he couldn't control. Imagine the pride drained from his face. He thought he was the hunter. But with every document, every cross-check, every testimony, he realized he was the one being cornered. Because your past doesn't just sit still. It stares back. It reshapes those who dare to touch it. He began hearing the same names repeat in his head. He started dreaming about places he'd only read about in your files. He noticed strangers watching him on his way home. As if by following your trail, he'd stumbled into an audience of unseen observers. The case wasn't his anymore. It had become his trap. This is where the story pivots. Because if they wanted dirt, they got something else entirely. An avalanche of proof that you are not built like anyone they've studied before. The man saw documents that referenced you before your official birth records. He saw hospital files with your name tagged to patients who should have died but didn't. He read police statements describing someone with your exact appearance, disrupting incidents decades before you should have existed. And that was the moment the smirk left him forever. He realized he wasn't unearthing scandals. He was brushing against something ancient, alive, and still unfolding. But here's the detail that hit hardest. He noticed how every report, every testimony, every obscure file, no matter how distant in time, carried the same undertone. Fear mixed with respect. Not pity, not disdain, respect. As if even back then, before anyone could articulate why, the people who wrote about you sensed they were cataloging someone untouchable, someone who couldn't be boxed in. And that's when he broke. Because investigators thrive on exposing weaknesses. But when the evidence screams the opposite, when it paints a picture of someone who grows stronger the more you search, then you're not doing investigation anymore. You're doing worship. Let's make this clear. The man didn't just uncover fragments. He uncovered consistency. The type of consistency no human should have. He saw your name hovering around events that shaped decades. Disasters averted, uprisings sparked, people saved, leaders rattled, always in the background, never center stage, but undeniable. He tried to deny it, he tried to rationalize, but every angle betrayed him. If it was coincidence, it was mathematically impossible. If it was forgery, it was executed by forces far beyond his pay grade. And if it was truth, then the entire foundation of what he thought life was supposed to be had just cracked under his desk. By the time he compiled his report, his hands were shaking. The words on the page weren't accusations. They were confessions. He wasn't exposing you. He was exposing his own disbelief. Because what he'd found wasn't supposed to exist. Yet it did. And the more he wrote, the more he realized the real revelation wasn't in the papers themselves. It was in the shift happening inside him. You weren't just someone with a hidden past. You were a threshold. Crossing into your history meant never looking at the world the same way again. Now think about what that means for the ones who hired him. They expected a file full of skeletons. They expected leverage, a weapon to corner you. But what landed on their desk wasn't ammunition. It was scripture. It was proof that the person they're trying to undermine doesn't bend under exposure. He multiplies. Their weapon has become their curse. Because once you open a door like that, you can't close it. They didn't just uncover your past, they unleashed it. That's why this part of the story matters. Not because a private investigator failed, but because his failure proved something larger. Your life is not a sequence of mistakes waiting to be exposed. Your life is a chain of revelations waiting to be discovered. And each revelation pushes those who witness it further into disarray. Because when every uncovered record makes you more formidable instead of fragile, you stop being a subject of investigation. You become a legend that won't fit into any report. He wanted a payday. What he got instead was obsession. He stopped reporting back on time. He started scribbling notes in margins, drawing maps, circling dates that didn't connect to anything rational. He became consumed. Because once you taste a story like yours, ordinary cases taste like dust. The man who built his career-breaking reputations is now broken himself because he touched a past too vast for him to cage. And now his employers know the truth. They can't buy enough detectives to collapse your image. Every attempt to expose you becomes another layer of awe. Every hand that tries to pull you down only lifts you higher. This is the trap they set for themselves. Because while they waste resources digging through your history, you keep moving forward. They don't realize the investigation itself is publicity. The whispers spread, the rumors grow. And instead of discrediting you, the attempt has branded you with mystery, with fear, with reverence. And once a reputation tips into that territory, no smear campaign can pull it back. The investigator knew this truth first. He didn't confess it to his employers, not outright, but every page he filed was an admission of his defeat. The stack of evidence he compiled wasn't evidence against you. It was evidence that nothing about you could be contained within their definitions of normal. Your records weren't messy, they were extraordinary. And extraordinary doesn't weaken reputations, it fuels them. Each sealed document became a badge. Each unexplained photograph became an emblem. Each strange testimony became a hymn. He could try to deny it, but the paper trail kept singing the same chorus. You are not someone to be exposed. You are someone to be studied, catalogued, feared, and, worst of all for them, respected. That's why the people who hired him began to feel the weight, too. At first, they mocked his hesitation. They thought he'd simply lost his edge, gone soft, unable to deliver what they paid for. But then they began reading his notes themselves, and the deeper they read, the less they laughed. Because once you touch the raw data, once you see the strange alignments firsthand, you can't unsee them. The evidence becomes a poison in the mind. The very people who wanted leverage began to realize they had stumbled into something more dangerous, a revelation that placed you beyond their reach. They sat in conference rooms with those documents, trying to piece together a narrative they could use. They wanted a scandal, a weakness, a scar to broadcast. But every attempt twisted back on itself. Every so-called red flag became another proof of your influence. Instead of creating a scandal, they were staring at prophecy. What should have been ammunition became scripture. And the fear set in. If this is just your past, then what does your future look like? If even your earliest traces unsettle hardened investigators, what will you become when the whole world finally notices? The private investigator wasn't sleeping anymore. He found himself pacing in the dead hours, whispering details into a recorder, repeating your name like a prayer. He wanted to quit, but he couldn't. Because once you pull a single thread in your history, the entire weave starts pulling you deeper. He told himself he was still working, still following leads, but in reality, he was unraveling. His work stopped being professional and became obsession. He wasn't documenting you anymore. He was documenting his descent. His notes began to sound like warnings, not reports. His words shifted from client to witness, from subject to force. He wasn't writing about a man. He was writing about something that stood above men. And that is what rattled your enemies most. They didn't just see evidence, they saw conversion. The investigator they hired had switched sides without even realizing it. His loyalty wasn't yours, not consciously, but his fear was. His awe was, and awe is stronger than loyalty. Awe rewires the brain, severs control, turns skeptics into heralds. The employers wanted to tighten chains around you, but they had paid for the construction of a monument instead. Their weapon had become your shrine. Now, here's the part that struck them hardest. The more they tried to contain the report, the faster it spread. They thought they could keep it locked away, a classified file only for internal eyes. But information never stays caged when it carries this kind of gravity. People inside the room start leaking whispers outside the room. Secretaries mention strange files. Analysts talk to colleagues over drinks. A phrase here, a sentence there. And suddenly the entire organization is buzzing with questions. Who is this person they're investigating? Why do the records look like this? What does it mean? And without you saying a single word, The legend multiplies. You didn't need to promote yourself. They promoted you for you. Let's be clear, your past didn't protect you with silence. It protected you with weight. Every attempt to unearth it collapsed under its own heaviness. That's why the investigator began to unravel. He thought he was strong enough to handle your trail. But strength isn't measured by curiosity. It's measured by endurance. And your story is not the kind that ends with neat answers. It ends with fractured minds, sleepless nights, and reputations shredded by their own inability to frame you. Picture him again, late at night, surrounded by piles of documents, his eyes bloodshot, his hands trembling, his mind trying to make sense of impossibilities. He stares at a birth certificate that doesn't match hospital records. He stares at a photograph where your face appears years before you were officially born. He stares at testimonies of events you supposedly disrupted without ever being present. Every file contradicts the last, yet every contradiction strengthens the same truth. You were never supposed to be reduced to paper. You were never supposed to be archived like a specimen. Your existence was already too vast, too layered, too sharp. And that's what crushed him. He wasn't just failing his assignment. He was failing his grip on reality. Meanwhile, your enemies sit restless. They wanted ammunition, but now they're scared to even hold the papers. Because once you've seen what they've seen, you're contaminated. You're infected by the knowledge that someone like you isn't supposed to exist, yet does. That someone like you can move through eras, leaving marks no one can erase. And if your past already bends logic, then your present must terrify them even more. Because you're not slowing down, you're accelerating. The investigation didn't cage you, it crowned you. This is the paradox they created. The harder they look for your downfall, the higher they lift your image. Every attempt to tarnish you polishes your legend. Every desperate search for dirt uncovers treasure. Every man they hire to weaken you ends up strengthening the aura that surrounds you. And when that cycle begins, there's no exit. They can't stop digging because quitting means admitting defeat. But the more they dig, the more they become your disciples. The investigator started avoiding mirrors. He claimed he could see you in the glass, not literally, but in essence. He said your presence lingered in his mind so heavily that even his reflection seemed to carry your outline. He stopped talking to colleagues. He stopped answering calls. He became a ghost, walking among the living, haunted by a revelation no human should carry. And yet all he was doing was experiencing what you've always known. Your story is not meant to be handled by ordinary men. It's too volatile, too vast, too alive. Now step back and see the bigger picture. This isn't just about one investigator losing his mind. This is about a network of powerful people who realize they have no leverage. They spent money, resources, time, all to create their own fear. They can't parade their findings in public because the findings don't humiliate you, they sanctify you. They can't bury the findings either because too many have seen enough to start whispering. They are stuck in the worst position imaginable, unable to attack you, unable to erase you, and unable to control the narrative. And you don't even need to move. Their actions do the work for you. Every attempt at sabotage becomes another brick in the fortress of your legend. Every desperate hire becomes another storyteller unwillingly writing your saga. Every secret file becomes another sacred text passed among trembling hands. You don't need to orchestrate this. It orchestrates itself. Because once ore enters the bloodstream, it doesn't leave. The private investigator wrote one last entry before he vanished. It wasn't a report. It wasn't even a warning. It was a single sentence scrawled in uneven ink. He was here before the records, and he will be here after them. No signature, no closure. Just that line, haunting the ones who paid him. They realized too late that they had tried to weaponize history against someone who transcends history itself. And now, the only thing they hold in their hands is a paper trail that testifies to their failure. That's why whispers about you don't weaken over time, they intensify. Because the more people see failed attempts at your downfall, the more they believe you can't be touched. And once people start believing that, it becomes truth. Perception hardens into reality, and reality once hardened is harder than steel. So here's where the tension sharpens. Your enemies thought exposure would destroy you, but exposure became ignition. The investigator thought he could handle your story. Instead, your story handled him. And the world that catches even fragments of this revelation is starting to turn. They no longer ask, "What's he hiding?" They now ask, "What else hasn't he revealed yet?" And that question doesn't weaken you, it crowns you. Because they hired a man to dig, and he unearthed something no human should have touched. He uncovered a tale that rewired his sanity, dismantled their plans, and turned your name into a banner they never wanted to raise. And as the dust settles, one fact echoes louder than all the rest. This isn't the end of the revelation. This is only the middle. The investigation was not the climax. It was the ignition. And what comes next will not just terrify them. It will erase the very idea that you could ever be diminished. The ignition was enough to light their panic, but panic doesn't stop a machine that's already in motion. Once an organization feeds on suspicion, it cannot spit it out. So they brought in more. Not one investigator, not two, but entire networks. Analysts, archivists, retired operatives, people trained to dismantle lies and stitch together truths. But every new set of eyes repeated the same pattern. They entered confident, certain that they could untangle what one man failed to do. And every single one of them left broken. Your past didn't behave like a timeline. It behaved like an engine. The deeper they pressed, the louder it roared until their own efforts became the fuel. Reports began stacking in locked rooms. Each page carried the weight of contradictions. You were listed as present in events where you couldn't have been. You were documented in locations where travel was impossible. Testimonies described the same details from witnesses who never knew one another. It was as if the entire archive of history had agreed to bend itself around your existence. The files were supposed to strip you bare, but instead they clothed you in armor thicker than any propaganda could provide. They wanted to paint you vulnerable, but the brushstrokes created an untouchable portrait. That's when they realized the problem wasn't the investigator. The problem was you. You didn't fit the framework they lived by. They thought everyone's past could be reduced to cause and effect, flaw and punishment. But yours was constructed differently. It didn't just resist interrogation. It punished those who attempted it. And punishment came in strange forms: insomnia, paranoia, a slow unraveling of certainty. The very act of trying to expose you consumed the exposer. The past wasn't your liability, it was your weapon. Imagine the boardrooms where this revelation echoed. Leaders sitting with cold coffee in front of them, documents scattered like shattered glass. They whispered to each other not about strategy, but about fear. If a single person's trail could do this to trained professionals, then what would happen if the public glimpsed it? If ordinary citizens saw even a fraction of what these investigators had seen, your image would stop being a subject of gossip and become a foundation of belief. You wouldn't be a man to undermine. You'd be a presence to orbit. And that was the nightmare they couldn't afford. So they tried suppression. They locked the files tighter. They issued orders that your name should not be spoken in certain circles. But suppression always leaks. And in this case, the leaks became a flood. Because fear is never quiet. Fear breeds rumors faster than fire breeds smoke. Whispers of what the investigator found spread far beyond their control. People who never met you, people who didn't even know why your name was forbidden, began asking questions. And questions are more dangerous than answers. Once the masses start demanding to know, there's no lid strong enough to contain the pot. That's why your story began escaping into the streets, not as official reports, but as fragments. A line here, a detail there. Stories of how you were recorded before you should have existed. Stories of how people swore they saw you where no one else could have been. Stories of how every attempt to trace you led only to madness. The fragments fused into a narrative larger than any smear campaign could ever counter. You had become untouchable, not because you hid well, but because your truth was too heavy for their hands. The private investigator's descent became legend itself. His disappearance wasn't just absence, it was warning. People whispered that he had vanished into the very archives he tried to master, lost in corridors of information that no human should walk. Others claimed he walked away willingly, changed, a messenger who could no longer live among those who hadn't seen what he saw. Either way, his name became a cautionary tale. And by extension, your name became mythic currency. Every mention of you carried the weight of madness and reverence intertwined. Now think about what that does to power structures. Governments rely on predictability, corporations rely on image, institutions rely on control, and you shattered all three in silence because your past refused to be predictable. Your image refused to be tarnished. Your story refused to be controlled. They threw their best tools at you and watched those tools snap in half. And once a tool snaps, the hand holding it trembles. Their confidence fractured, their authority cracked, their belief in their own reach collapsed. Here's the part they can't stomach. They aren't fighting against lies. Lies can be disproven, exposed, dismantled. They are fighting against revelations, and revelations can't be erased once spoken. The more they try to deny your past, the more people believe it. Because denial looks like fear, and fear looks like proof. The harder they push against your story, the more credibility they accidentally lend it. It's the trap with no escape. Resistance amplifies the very force they hoped to diminish. You don't have to step onto their stage. You don't have to respond to their accusations. The architecture of your legend is already being built in their failures. Every broken investigator lays another stone. Every trembling official cements another wall. Every forbidden whisper erects another tower. Until the fortress is so tall, so undeniable, that even they must bow their heads when they pass beneath its shadow. They created the conditions for their own reverence, and now they must live with the monument they didn't mean to build. The whispers of your past began moving like wildfire across cultures. In one city, they said you were seen in files older than your age. In another, they said doctors recorded your name, tied to recoveries that had no explanation. In another, they swore your presence altered the outcomes of trials, votes, entire movements. Each fragment bent toward